free. But you can give them to the birds and bees. I want money.
Welcome to Britain's very own Monaco.
That's what I want.
This is the London Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, home to some of the richest people in the world. Or more likely, second, third or fourth home. Many of them, like in Monaco, pay very little tax. They mix with each other, but they don't engage much with the wider society around them. And here in Knightsbridge, property prices at £2,400 per square foot have finally caught up with Monaco's. The average price of a semi in Kensington and Chelsea is nearly £5 million. Property prices in the borough have risen by 120% since 2005, more than anywhere else in the country. When you combine it with neighbouring Westminster, last year's stamp duty take was bigger than Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, the North East, North West and Yorkshire and the Humber put together.
There's been a massive influx of international buyers, and they're coming from all over the place now. I mean, the breadth of the different and range of different nationalities is greater than it's really ever been.
Property prices are now so high in this part of London that it's become hollowed out. Only the very rich or the very poor who get council housing can afford to move in. And the only British residents in the private houses who aren't super rich are those who've lived here a long time.
This is the new Beverly Hills. Who would have thunk? You know, it started off as, what were we, coach houses here? And now there's no eccentrics anymore. They got rid of those. And it's banker. You know, I can't even tell them apart. And they all have those wives with the hair that goes like this, and then a kind of motorcycle that they put their children in. Those skinny women.
In Kensington and Chelsea, nearly a quarter of residents work in finance and insurance. That's around 5 times the national rate. And the average annual income in the borough, at £128,000, is the highest in the country. Here in Notting Hill, in the north of the borough, it used to be full of quite bohemian and artistic types. Now it's chock full of bankers and the shops that have sprung up to service them. You could spend £3 on a loaf of bread in here. You can buy food a lot more cheaply round the corner in Portobello Market. And the stallholders there remember this area the way it used to be.
This was a real poor area, like real poor. People were fighting in them days to get out of this area. Now they're fighting to get into this area. I mean, I was born, 100 yards up the road from me in a little mews. Mum and Dad and my sister, we used to live in a little mews flat there, you know. Dad used to pay about £5 a week rent. I know that was a long time ago. Them gaffs now are worth about £2.5 million each. So that says it all to me, I think. You know,
And do any of the rich people shop here?
There are guys that live up that mews there, they get all their fruit online. And they're in a fruit market. There's really no community now.
Where there's a shortage of space and lots of demand, people have to build. In Monaco, they're building up in ever higher skyscrapers to the fury of many locals. Here in Kensington and Chelsea, they're digging down, creating huge sub-basements, sometimes on several levels. I've been given a sneak preview of this house in one of the swankiest squares in Knightsbridge, which is on the market for £11.5 million. The owner has dug a sub-basement below the existing one to house another sitting room and what estate agents now love to call a media room. But some people have dug even deeper and further than this. They've gone down 3 or 4 levels below ground and they've put in swimming pools and games rooms and home cinemas and gigantic wine cellars. It's as if people are trying to shoehorn their fantasies of what a big American mansion should contain into a small, narrow London terraced home. Some of these are called icebergs because they actually have more below ground than they do above. Under another house in the same square, they're digging a huge sub-basement. The hole's so big you can see it on Google Earth.
Charlie knew. I don't know why that.
I don't know. As in Monaco, the neighbours of the basement diggers are incandescent. The endless drilling, the hammering, the dust and the lorries are driving them mad.
I only know drill. That's the only sound in my head. I've had little silicone implants, so I don't have to hear the drilling. And it's a competition. Who can build lower? Really, it's a kind of how rich are you? So some people are hitting the crust of the earth now.
More than half of Kensington and Chelsea residents were born overseas, and 27% arrived in the UK in the past 10 years. And 50% of children in the borough go to private schools. That's 7 times the national average. It's not just the language and the schools that attract rich foreigners to London. The capital also has appealingly low property taxes on very expensive houses. Less than half of those of New York and less than a third of Hong Kong's. And some of these houses are barely lived in. Their owners just see them as investments. And even if they do live here full-time, a lot of them don't seem to have much stake in society. They tend to avoid state schools and the NHS and public transport. Some of them even club together and hire private security guards to patrol their streets. It's as if they're living in a bubble, quite separate from the rest of us, and only mixing with other extremely rich people. So what effect does this have on the area they live in? Danny Dorling is a geography professor at Oxford who's been studying the social geography of London.
The rich are very resentful of paying their taxes because they don't see themselves as getting very much back for it. At the same time, as this kind of apartheid between the rich and the poor grows, the poor obviously are very, very resentful of the rich. The rich find it incredibly easy as far as they're concerned to live there and are squeezing them out and are making it harder and harder for poorer people to live. And the people in the middle, well, there's less and less and less of them.
And the damage isn't just social. The area's been hollowed out physically too. With all these giant sub-basements being dug, there's now a whole honeycomb of holes in the clay under Kensington and Chelsea's streets. You can almost imagine the disaster movie ending as the borough collapses into a sinkhole of its own making.